Hello, this is Mike Lively and this is Professional Papervision, and today we're looking at vanishing point. Now, vanishing point is extremely important, and if you don't get it right, your objects are going to be skewed on the stage. Early in this chapter we actually looked at two examples. When we built the Flash engine in 18 lines of code, we initially had our Flash ball oscillating in and out of the stage at the upper left-hand corner of the CRT screen. Now this began to bring to us the concept of vanishing point. Essentially, that's where it oscillated out at. So we had to translate that into the center of the screen, and doing that we were able to get to oscillate back and forth. So we began to realize, hey, you know what? There's something funny going on here. And that funniness is all about vanishing point. And so you can actually move and translate that vanishing point around. Let's first take a look at these two applications, and then we'll go and take a look at how it's done automatically using a method in Flash 10. So here's the first application, 18 lines of code animation engine with the ball oscillating at the upper left hand corner. Let's go ahead and run it and take a look at it. So we've made no adjustment for the vanishing point, so there it's just going to take the upper left hand corner. And so we actually want to adjust that. Now what's actually happening in the code as we watch it oscillate is that we've got this statement right here, the ball X and ball Y. Times the scale, but nothing added to the end of it. So if we add something to the end of that, we can actually translate that X and Y and change our vanishing point. Let's do that in the next program. So here's the second application, 18 lines of code animation engine, but now with the, and essentially the X and Y positions are translated. Let's go ahead and run that program. And we see that our vanishing point, basically where the ball disappears, is at the center of the stage. So these are important concepts that are starting to rise in just some really basic coding, 18 lines of code. You start seeing these concepts and you want to start understanding those and working with them. So the way this was accomplished basically was in that X and Y position, we just added a stage width and a stage height to center that ball. Now there's some very important concepts that are starting to come out just with a few lines of code and that idea of vanishing point. Here's a little write-up that I did from the Adobe Docs. So I created this write-up from the Adobe Docs, and it'll be included in the code download, and it's titled Vanishing Point. So what is perspective? In a 2D plane, a representation of parallel lines that's converging on a vanishing point to give the illusion of depth and distance. That's perspective. And what's a vanishing point? Is a point at which receding parallel lines seem to meet when represented in linear perspective. So the key there is what? Receding parallel lines. And so there's a number of concepts just out of 18 lines of code that just start to emerge, and that is projecting 3D objects on a 2D view. The idea of field of view, projection center, focal length, all important concepts. I'm not going to go through all of these right now, but as we proceed through the tutorials, I'll hit these as we need them. And Adobe actually has a really important example in its docs, and we're going to take a look at that right now. So this comes from Programming Adobe ActionScript 3. It's a PDF that you can download and use on your desktop for offline viewing, and I highly suggest that you do that. And come along here, and what I'm going to do is just type in the word perspective projection in this little search tab here, and just go ahead and tab down to that, and it tells you how it was created, and we're going to go through that. And really all you have to do is and essentially just scroll down here and cut and paste the code for that example into your ActionScript 3 AS file. Go ahead and save that and run it. Let me do that for you right now. I've actually done that, and that's all there is to it. And essentially all I did, actually did a little bit more. I actually mucked with the code a little bit, changed it a little bit, but it's almost the same. And essentially this is the package, and you're going to go through here and you're going to basically cut and paste it into your AS3, save that file, then create a flaw and put it in your document class. And in my document class, I actually save this AS file as projection dragger, and then I put that in the document class, and then I ran the file. So let's go and run it and see what we get. And you get this really, really cool application. I love it. And basically, here's the projection center, and you can see as you drag the projection center around, these stacked rectangles follow it, but you can see how it's skewed. So it's really important that if you have a 3D application running and you're not centered, it's not going to look right. It's going to look skewed, and there's going to come times when you need to actually change that projection center. Now it's very important to realize that in the last two examples we actually changed the center projection by hard coding it in the application. But in this example we actually do it programmatically. So this is changed using a method called perspective projection, and that has a method called projection center, and that enables us to change this very rapidly in the Flash 10 player as opposed to hard coding it in Flash 9. So what we're going to do now is go through this application pretty quickly and show you how it was created. The first thing you want to do is import a sprite and a shape, and you might wonder, why do you want a sprite and a shape? And I have a little definition down here in the comments of the difference between a sprite and a shape. Basically, a sprite includes a graphics property and it includes other features not available to the shape class. So the sprite is a display object container where a shape object is not. So you can have any interactivity with it. Basically, shapes is just a drawing. So you can see you want to make your rectangle shape because there's many of them and you don't interact with them. But your sprite is this center point here and you want to interact with it. So that gives you interactivity. So why do you do that? Because you're drawing lots of these rectangles, but you don't want to carry the CPU cost of having them interactive as well. So you take that off just by using the shape object. So that's a long explanation of a simple concept. After you do that, you want to create your boxes and your center. So create your center first and then your boxes. And by creating the center first, it actually lays it on the bottom. And when it's on the bottom layer, it looks like it's underneath all the stacked boxes, even though it's at z equals 0. Okay? And there's a whole bunch of things you need to go through. Once you declare your sprite, then basically you draw it and you add your crosshairs, and then you center it at x equals 175, y equals 175, and z equals 0. And then you add it to the stage using add child. The next thing you want to do, what you cannot do with a shape, is add listeners. So that's why the center has to be a sprite. So you're going to add a mouse down listener, a mouse up listener, and a mouse move listener, and we'll go through that at the end of the code here. Finally, you want to set the initial projection center, so you pretty much do root.transfer.perspective.projection center equals new point, and that center is x and y, and that centers your crosshairs. Next, create your boxes. Here's your box method, create box methods. And all that is an iteration through the number of layers that you choose. So you actually could have more than 12 layers. You can have as many as you want. And pretty much you have an X and a Y. And pretty much you subtract I iteration to get the height of the layers. You're laying them down all the way up times the depth layer. Finally, you have the color here of that particular box. You can see you're iterating the boxes, stacking up the different colors, each set of 4 columns. And in order to do that, you have to create your box. So here's the create box method. And pretty much you just, once again, declare the shape, add your graphics, your shape, and then position your box. And that all comes through the method here. Very important tool to understand and use. You just ping to this other method every time you need to create a single box. And this creates your multiple boxes. It's great. Go through the code, make sure you understand it, and it's actually fairly simple. The last part you want to do is declare your methods that you're going to run as your mouse activity occurs. Let's take a look at those methods real quick. Here's the start, drag, projection center. And pretty much when your mouse is clicked, you go to write start drag. This is typical Flash stuff. And you want your end drag to be true. That means you're dragging. The next one is you're going to do the drag. So if it's true, then you're going to transform your center X and Y. So it's continually iterating and transferring your center as you drag that mouse. And the last is when you stop the drag, when you lift it. So when you lift it, you stop drag. You make sure you get that final center projection right here. And then you set your end drag to be false so you don't accidentally keep dragging. So it's a really, really cool program. It's a simple program. And if you're new to Flash programming, this definitely want to go to the docs, want to read about it, check this video again, and practice making this and do some modifications. Here's a real simple modification you can make. You want to make your colors varied, for example, so you could actually add a random to your color. And so I just put a randomizer on my color there, and the way you do that is just so math.random star FFFF 6 Fs, okay? And then you don't have to worry about any other color fill right here. So I'll take that out. And when I run this program, I'm going to actually get a multicolor on my boxes. And now what you see is my boxes are multicolored. Isn't that cool? You may or may not like that. Sometimes when I change code like this, I muck it up a little bit. And if you don't like the multicolors, just go back and comment out the random method I put in there. But it's important not only that you read and understand code, that you try to modify it so you can see what happens, and that will help your coding as well.